Hello, it's Felicia the Gem. Just wanted to make this quick video. Actually, it's so funny because, well, first let me say, I am just in chill mode today. As you can see, hair is put up in a messy ponytail. Just got showered, lotion my face. That's why I'm all shiny. But I really want you to pay attention to the content of this video and maybe not look at what I look like today, because today was my chill day at home, but I didn't want to wait to make this video. I just want to talk a little bit about boundaries in relationships. That's kind of been a theme for me over the last couple of days, not necessarily in my own life, but and talking to various people over the last couple of days, boundaries keeps coming up as far as how important they are in a relationship. So let me first explain to say that sometimes people confuse boundaries in relationships with barriers. Boundaries are a type of understanding. Boundaries are saying to the person that you're in relationship with, and it's not just romantic relationship, but friendships as well. Boundaries is a way of saying, this is how I want this relationship to go. This is where I'm comfortable operating with you in this relationship. These are the things that I would appreciate from you. These are the things that I would prefer that you not do in this relationship. And a lot of times we neglect to set boundaries ahead of time, and we wait for something to happen, or we kind of just go with the flow and something does happen because there's no boundaries. It'd be sort of like driving if no one ever drew those yellow lines on the ground. There's a chance that you're going to go into territory that you're not supposed to be in if there's nothing that says, okay, this is for people going north and this is for people going south. So boundaries are really important in a relationship. It's important that you're clear and you're honest about what works for you in relationships and what doesn't. Especially, let me look at friendships for a minute, because in friendships there's different degrees of friendship. There's different areas. I have friends who, you hang out with, but you don't necessarily confide in. I have friends you confide in, but you don't necessarily hang out with. I have friends that I've had for 30 years, may not have seen them in 5, but we're still friends. But there's different degrees of how I relate to those people. So you want to come to a clear understanding about where your relationship is. If it's a friendship, what type of friendship it is, excuse me. If it's a romantic relationship, are we dating? Are we in a committed relationship? Are my expectations that you don't talk to any other, as a female, that you don't talk to any other females while we're dating? Or am I okay with that? Or am I just like, okay, well, I don't care who you talk to as long as I don't know you talking to them. Don't, if you're get a call from somebody, don't take it in front of me. So those types of things. A lot of times we confuse barriers with boundaries. A lot of times, especially after we've had a few adverse relationships, when we've had things happen, when we've been hurt, or when we've been offended in a relationship in some way, we tend to create barriers between us and the next person that we're going to get in a relationship with, because that's our way of making sure that that doesn't happen again. And I want to say that although barriers can be or can appear to be effective, boundaries are much more effective. And it doesn't have to be a formal conversation. You don't have to sit down with somebody who you click with and say, okay, look, we're going to be friends, and this is the kind of friends they're going to be, and these are the things that we can talk about, and these are the things that we can't talk about. But if you're honest with that person about the type of person you are, if you're honest about your likes and your dislikes, then you'll kind of understand. Also, if you're invested in the relationship and you've set boundaries, and somehow, some way, something still gets mixed up, there's still an offense, then you got a foundation to go back to. You have something to rely on to say, okay, well, let's figure this out. Maybe you didn't know this about me, but I was offended by that, or this doesn't work for me. Is there any way you could not do that? Or can we change this? Can we do something differently? The other piece that came to me as far as boundaries, and something that's really important, even deciding when the relationship is no longer viable. There comes a time in relationships that aren't meant to last forever when things are done. I very recently met someone, and they ended up, they weren't in close proximity to me, but we were acquainted. And for a minute, it seemed like that we were going to maybe be more than acquainted. But then I kind of realized that we probably weren't going to be any more than acquaintances. In that process, I guess we both realized the same thing. Whereas for me, that person being my acquaintance was fine. I have sisters, I have friends, I have a full circle of people in my life. So having people that aren't as close to me as others, I'm okay with. I guess in that person's evaluation, they were not okay with it. So I guess when they figured out that we were not going to be any closer than we were, they decided to terminate the relationship. For me, in the past, I would have, not understanding what I understand now about relationships, I would have seen that as rejection. But I also understand now that sometimes you have to look at the gift of goodbye. And if even if you're not the one who decided it was time to say goodbye, you have to look at it as being a gift. Because if somebody is in your life and they don't want to be in your life and they're not fully into your life, it's better for them to say goodbye, even if it may hurt a little bit or may not be what you absolutely desire, rather than to have somebody in your space who is not for your good and bringing you good. So when I realized that this person basically terminated our acquaintance, if that's how you want to put it, I thought for a minute and I was like, oh, well, that was, harsh and abrupt. And then in the next minute, I said, well, thank you. I thank that person for making that decision to terminate us being acquaintances, because that leaves room for another acquaintance who's bringing what I need in my life to the table, who's bringing good, who doesn't feel like they're around but don't want to be around. So setting boundaries in relationships really does go back to, what's the relationship about? What's my role? What's your role? What are my expectations? What are my requirements? What am I willing to give? Where do I draw the line? What's non-negotiable? What makes it a relationship that we want to keep invested in? What can possibly happen that will make both of us look and say, or one of us or the other look and say, this relationship no longer has life in it. It's no longer viable. Let's terminate. And understanding the gift of goodbye, understanding the difference between boundaries and barriers. Love and relationships is something that must flow. And when there's a barrier, just like if you look at like the heart, and when people have clogged arteries and things like that, there's a barrier. The heart is meant to pump blood and be a part of the circulatory system. And when there's a barrier, things go wrong, and then there's things that need to happen to clear that up. So you don't want to wall yourself off. You don't want to put up barriers in relationships that are going to keep you from getting all you can and giving all you can in a relationship. But you do want to set clear boundaries. And I think you have to you have to know what your boundaries in relationships are prior to getting into relationships. Boundaries really, really are a personal thing. It's not, no one else really can tell you what you should be comfortable with and what you should and shouldn't allow, in the sense of what you require in a relationship. That really is something that should be an uninfluenced personal decision on boundaries. So I hope this was helpful to somebody. It definitely is something that I want to look at a little bit more. It is something I think that I will do a teleseminar on, so please stay tuned. Please leave comments, weigh in, let me know what you think. Let me know if there's other stuff, relationship stuff, whether it's relating to other people or even how you relate to yourself, that you want me to do videos on, or that you want me to cover. Post any questions. Feel free to visit my website, www.feliciathegym.com. You can find me on Facebook at Felicia the Gym, or you can find me on Twitter at Felicia the Gym. And you can also search Twitter for my relationship gems. There's a hashtag relationship gems, and also gems, hashtag gems for living. I hope you enjoy, and may your relationships be great. Talk to you later.